You're watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.
Hey everyone, welcome on into Toronto Sports Rush for the Bet Rivers Network. We are extremely thrilled to be able to welcome on today's guest, six-time Stanley Cup champion, analyst for ESPN, and co-founder of Game 7, a multi-platform sports and entertainment brand. None other than Mark Messier. He does it all, everywhere, every time. And today, that brand is going to be launching. This is Tuesday, December 2nd, at the NHL store. And Mark, thanks so much for taking the time to join us. And I know that you've done so much with the brand already. Documentaries on Amazon, patches on the New York Rangers jerseys. And obviously, we've got some swag here. What's it been like becoming, I guess, a co-founder of a new brand, a new enterprise that you're really trying to take to the moon?
Yeah, it's been quite a journey for us. We were able to secure the rights worldwide to Game 7 probably 3 years ago. When we did that, then we asked ourselves, what were we going to do with it? We knew it was a really iconic brand, or had potential to be an iconic brand, just because of what Game 7 means, not only to, in the literal sense, but to everybody. We started out to try to build a community through a content series of literal Game 7s on Amazon, which was Emmy nominated. We're very proud of the 5 that we have out in the market so far. And then building merchandise and food and beverage around what we think is an incredible opportunity to help people with their own Game 7 moments in life. And of course, you know, I can just speak to myself of what I learned throughout my career in those most pressurized moments, and why are some people able to execute in those moments. And then the learnings around those through the storytelling, through sport. But ultimately, in the end, we can ask everybody, you know, what's your Game 7 moment in life, or what has been your Game 7 moment in life, and were you prepared? How were you prepared? And then start to give those lessons to our younger kids, and hopefully when that moment comes around from them, they're equipped to act on it.
So then, just based on that point, what would be your advice for someone entering their Game 7 moment to capitalize on it?
Well, there's many components to that, but one is you have to put the work in and the reps in, and you think about a lifetime of practice. And when I say practice, I mean both you know, practical practice, spiritual practice, discipline, grit, determination, all the things that we know are so relevant when you're talking about becoming a champion. And then ultimately, in the end, you have to have an unwavering belief and trust in yourself, that you've put the work in, you know you can do this, you've done this countless times. And then what really starts to happen for me anyways is I was able to start to narrow my focus. The closer I came to game time, I was able to start to really narrow my focus to what I needed to do individually as a player, my execution from a team concept, and then what the team needed to do to be successful. And when you do that, you know, all the noise and all the chatter and all the stress and you know, the things that can kind of cloud someone's mind in those pivotal moments kind of just start to disappear, and you really kind of get yourself to stay in the moment and focus in on the only thing that really matters, and that at that time is executing the game plan.
I really like how you've made this brand relatable to every single person, because as you mentioned, we all have sort of Game 7 moments in our life. And when I hear you talk about it like that, first of all, I want to run through a wall. And I also think of the idea that, like, when you have that pressure on you, it is relishing the idea that you want the ball with 3 seconds left on the clock, because you know you're going to make that shot. Like, it's that, for me, when I hear you say that, that's my Game 7 mentality of, like, really being so confident that under pressure, you know you're going to perform. And I'm like getting shivers even thinking about it. But well, I got to tell.
I think you said it. I think I'm confident I'm going to make the shot. I don't know if I'm going to make the shot, but I'm willing to risk to take the shot because I'm confident in myself. So, I mean, that all goes hand in hand. And I know that I put the work in. I know the stroke. I know the shot. I know how to do it. Will I allow myself to do it by not worrying about the consequences if I don't do it? And I think that's what we're really where a lot of athletes get clouded in those moments is they start thinking ahead of themselves. Well, what if I don't do it? What are the ramifications? What happens if we lose? What happens if we win? That all that's good, but all that has to be done prior to the event. Once the event is on, then you have to have that unwavering trust and belief in yourself and be willing to take a risk. I mean, you can't win without taking a risk, and sometimes it's not going to go your way. I've been in plenty of those situations myself, but the people that are willing to take the risk ultimately and trust themselves because they practice that one move or that one shot or that one stroke so many times that they trust themselves that they can do it when the pressure's on the most. But don't forget, they're not feeling that pressure at that moment. They're in the moment. They're not absorbing all the things that could happen if they don't or do or all that. They're just in the moment, and they're trusting of the practice that they put in for their entire life. So it's a different mindset when it gets to that point.
Very cerebral, and it's getting out of your own way a lot of the time too, is what I'm hearing from you right there. Now, because we're on a Toronto network here right now, there's a Game 7, there's a lot to talk about with that. So let's go to the most recent Game 7. And that, of course, was the Toronto Blue Jays taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers in Game 7 of the World Series. A lot of people in Toronto still haven't been able to get over that yet, and obviously, what do you, first of all, from your standpoint, watching Game 7s, being in Game 7s, where does that rank in Game 7s that you've seen?
Well, I think the right at the top. I mean, the whole series was, you knew going in it was going to be an incredible series. And what I took from it myself mostly is that when you watch a team or teams that are completely connected physically, spiritually, like what you talked about, the way they speak each other in their interviews, the way they celebrate each other's success, it's so clear when a team is playing on that level. And I didn't know who was going to win, the series going into it. Obviously, the Dodgers were favored, but you could not help but be so wrapped up into the Toronto Blue Jays and the way and how hard they played for each other, and the way they performed under pressure, and pitchers coming in and having to get one or two out. I mean, the whole series was just incredible. But I get back to the point of how to build a team. The character, the positional play, the leadership that's required to get to a team to perform like that. And to me, I think the game was the winner. Obviously, the fans were the winners. Ultimately, it was unfortunate that you had to have a loser. I don't even look at Toronto Blue Jays as being losers. I know they didn't win the championship, but you think about everything they accomplished. I know they're disappointed they didn't win it, but I'm telling you, as a fan, someone that's been in those moments there, it was incredible to watch. And that's going to be talked about for a long time, and that's going to be used as a blueprint of what team chemistry and what team synergy really looks like. Because it was so clear. It was coming out of the TV screen.
Yeah.
It was screaming it. And until you can get your team to that level of care and compassion and love for each other and playing for each other and respect for each other and the synergy that it takes, the championships aren't easy to come by, but without that, they'll never come.
I think you make a really great point that you said it feels like even though the Jays didn't win, they did feel like they had won something because that team, had done more than any of us had expected, captured all of Canada's hearts, and that game was something that will live on forever. If you were in the Jays clubhouse and you had them after that game, what would be your words to that team?
Well, I think it's simple. We're disappointed we didn't lose or we didn't win. I mean, every year you go to training camp with one thought is to try to win a championship, and they came within an out or two of doing it. It's heartbreaking. No words at that moment can really justify what you would want to intend to say to the team, other than let's not get disappointed, let's not get disheartened, let's get more emboldened and more drive and more determined. And I think that's what you say, because they were that close. They tasted they got a taste of what it means to be on that stage and and the enormity of it all. And they know that they can perform under those circumstances. So let's not get discouraged. Let's not get disheartened. Let's get more determined. Let's come back next year with an attitude that, our business is not finished. We got more work to do here. We got a good enough team to do it. And when we come back to training camp, let's ensure that everybody leaves here and comes to camp prepared, have put the work in, and let's go on another journey, and this time let's finish it off.
Right. It's data that they know that they can do it, that they've been there before, and they just need to be able to execute. Yes. Now there's a team that's down the street from them that has played in many Game 7s and not had the same sort of excitement, enthusiasm around how they have lost in that. And that, of course, is the Toronto Maple Leafs. And we all saw what happened against Florida. We've seen what has happened in the past against Boston. Now with Toronto, after they had lost to the then continuing Stanley Cup champions, the Florida Panthers, last year, and the way that Toronto has now come into this season and they're in the bottom of the East. I mean, what's your takeaway about how this Toronto team has sort of, I guess, rebounded from what happened to them last year? And of course, with missing players, but that aside.
They've been operating at a pretty high level for quite a few years now, and they have had some disappointments in the playoffs, which ultimately in the end is the only thing they're judged on. But it's hard to stay at the top of this league year after year after year after year, because everything recycles. You stay at the top and then other teams come around, and then there's kind of this whole recycling of teams through draft picks, and kids get older and get more accomplished, and other guys get older and then they weed out. So for a team to stay on top for a long period of time is very hard with the way the league is set up right now. So when Toronto has had some success, they've had some incredible disappointments. Every year is brand. You don't know. You gotta find your voice. You gotta find your inspiration. You gotta find what's going to be the glue that brings this team together. Because every team, even if you change 5 players off a team, that's almost more than 20% of your team. That's a lot. And with the amount of movement that teams are seeing from a year-to-year basis, there's a lot of work that has to be done internally to bring the team together in that cohesive unit that we just talked about, like the Toronto Blue Jays. And so the quicker you can do that, the better. And then you got to figure out what your identity is. How are you going to try to win a game? Are you a defensive team? Are you an offensive team? Are you going to win it through structure? Are you going to win it through talent? Ultimately, in the end, to be honest with you, you need it all. But you at least have to have some starting point of what your identity is and what is going to be the one thing that is going to galvanize the team together. And you don't know that going into training camp, because what galvanized the team last year might not necessarily be the same thing this year. So as a leadership and as you go along, there's got to be something. You're always looking for little kernels, something that has happened, something that your team believes in, a bigger ideology or whatever it is, that everybody can wrap their arms around and then go on the journey together to try to win a Stanley Cup. Because ultimately, in the end, you can't be fragmented. You have to have a team that is completely aligned on how you're going to play in order to win, from the ownership to the president to the GM to the coach to the leadership on the team to the players. And now you hold hands and you say, let's go to try to do this, because we all know how we're trying to do it. But if that isn't completely clear, then I think teams struggle, because then you're disjointed, you're not aligned, you're not sure how you're trying to win. And it takes a coordinated effort. And sometimes it's nobody's fault. It's just that the team or the organization hasn't come or is not aligned in order how we're going to get the job done. And you see that oftentimes. Now, I'm not on the inside of Toronto Maple Leafs or any other team, so I don't know the inner workings of it. But from the outside, those are the things that I look for. What's the purpose of the team? And you have to have a purpose every year. You have to find the purpose. And I know we can say, it's to win the Stanley Cup. But how are you going to win the Stanley Cup? How are we going to win the Stanley Cup? What's going to enable us to go on that 9-10 month journey together, and what's going to be the glue that does it for us?
I think you speak really well to that, describing the Florida Panthers in the last 2 years, of them having that identity and them all being on the same page from top to bottom. But specifically for the Leafs, just from an outside perspective, they do look fragmented. They have been inconsistent, and there have been sort of issues with confidence, and they've been really under the scrutiny of the media because of how things have gone this year. How do you then figure out a way to bring yourself into being cohesive, into having that team identity when things haven't gone well and it is now December? Can you even do that at this point?
Yeah, of course you can. I mean, I think, if you look at it, the league is so tight, and even though they're towards the bottom of the league in the conference, a 5 or 6 game winning streak, they're back into it. But I think what you're talking about when you mention Florida is a culture. They have created a culture of the kind of player that they want, the kind of style that they want to play, and they draft and they trade to that kind of player or that style of play. They got a coach that coaches to it. They got a leadership that leads to it, and they got players that are willing to accept their responsibilities, no matter how big or small on the team, because that's the culture that they've created. And I think when you see teams year after year after year after year not successful, my guess is they haven't created a culture that is conducive to winning, and they're not all in agreement of that, and they're not all working towards it, whether it's from the ownership to the management to the president to the coach, all that. And then, of course, you get down to players and talent, and then the structure of the team. There's a team is not a group of individuals. A team is made up of a lot of different components that all are conducive to winning and playing a different part. So then you can look at the construct of the team. It's why it's so fascinating, to be honest with you, Julie, is because it's not easy to win. And there's a lot of things that have to be put in place in order for a team to even set out on the journey to try to win. And, you look at the Leafs, they've had some injuries. They had some players out of the lineup. They've made some changes. I just look at right here in New York City. I mean, you talk about a team that was on top of the heap for quite a few years. We had one of the best years, in franchise history. Not a couple years ago, they decided to move it in a different direction. And you can see it's taken some time to get some traction with the new nucleus of the team and the core group of the team. The core drives the culture of the team. And it takes years for the chemistry of the core to come together, and that's what teams are always looking for, is that core leadership.
Right, and because I asked you to speak to the Toronto Blue Jays clubhouse, I will have you, of course, if you could just say one sentence, one line, one idea to this Toronto Maple Leafs dressing room, what would it be?
Well, that's hard. I get in line. Get aligned. What is our mission? What is our inspiration? Where is our heart? You know what I mean? And you got to start at sometimes from and break it completely down, and then start to put the pieces back together. And of course, I don't know what's going on with the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't know internally. My guess is there's any team that is struggling, there's probably be some conflict. There's probably maybe some indecision. I don't know that. I'm just from past experiences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if the team isn't performing well, and you think you're underachieving, you got to figure out why you're underachieving, and then you got to start to address it one building block at a time. But ultimately, in the end, you have to know how you're trying to win hockey games as a team, and the quicker you can do that, the better. And then everybody's got to play to that strength. You look at the team, you look at the players, you look at your talent, and what is the strength of our team, whether it's defense, whether it's a goaltending, whether it's the offense, whatever it is, and play to your strengths. That's a long-winded. That's a long one sentence.
Well, we'll have them play it in their dressing room. I'm sure it won't hurt. That's certainly for sure. One final question about Game 7 and Game 7s. We talked a lot about winning them or losing them. But what about in the Leafs case, where you have lost so many of them that for a lot of them, it has become the only thing that they know? How then do you go forward and play in a Game 7 without the idea of the past creeping in?
I played 26 years pro. I'm considered a winner, but I lost out of this 26 years pro, 25 in the NHL. I'm considered a winner because I was able to be on a championship, lucky enough to be on championship teams that won 6 times. But ultimately, I'm a loser because I've lost 19 times. And that's I've lost 3 times more than I've won in my career. So to answer your question, how do you do it? What did you learn in failure? What did you learn about yourself? What are the things that you learned as a team? Where were you deficient? There's a million questions to ask when you lose, or when you failed, or when you're not playing up to your potential. And if you don't have the courage to ask the questions about yourself and each other, then you're never going to grow as a team. And if you're not willing to fix it, and if you're not willing to address it and hit it dead on, then you'll never grow. Because there's a million lessons in those losses and those failures. And oftentimes those are the building blocks that you need in order to grow as a player and as a team. So if you look at it that you're paralyzed because you're going to get in that same moment again and you're going to start thinking about the past, no, I'm better now than I was then. I don't care what happened last time. I'm a better player. I'm a better person. I'm a better teammate. We have better infrastructure. We have better game plan. We're way better. I don't even care what happened then. That's how you get over those mental hurdles, and when you get back in those same situations, because you're better. You're more intelligent. You have more experience. You have more confidence because you've learned from it. And if you don't, then you get into the cycle of repeating the same pattern year after year after year.
Mark, I know you're working on this Game 7 enterprise right now, but you really have to be a motivational speaker. Like, honestly, can I hire you to just be my alarm clock every day? That's like, you get up because you know you're gonna learn from your mistakes. Oh my gosh, I could run through a wall right now. Thank you. And I'm not on the Toronto Maple Leafs, but thank you so much, Mark, for taking the time here today to talk about everything Game 7. We wish you the best of luck as things are going to be launching on Tuesday at the NHL store. Guys, make sure you check out all of the merchandise and everything that the documentaries and beyond that your company is doing. Mark, thank you so much for taking the time here to be on Toronto Sports Rush.
Oh, it was great to be on with you, Julie.
Thanks for watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.